Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. Today we're going to start with a nice animation using a rig, and we're going to be talking about the first and most important step, which is key poses. So this is the rig that we've downloaded in the past video from Joe Daniels, this flower sack rig. Thank you, Joe. And we're going to be working with this guy. So what we're going to do is the following. I'm going to create a cube here. I'm going to scale it so this is 30 units on the scale axis, and then I'm going to move it on the y-axis 15 units down. Whoop. So minus 15. That way I'm pretty sure that this guy is right on top of the character. I'm then gonna move this guy minus 15 on the x-axis. Sorry, on the z-axis. Let's do minus 30 instead. There we go. I'm gonna duplicate this and I'm gonna move this 30 units on the z-axis like this. So this is the front of Maya, of course, because of the blue arrow. This is C. And what I'm gonna do, as you can imagine, is I'm gonna do an animation in which this little sack right here, this flower sack, jumps from this box all the way to this other box. We're not gonna need the grid right here, so I'm gonna turn it off. And before we do anything, let's explore the rig a little bit. Similar to what we did with the robot arm, we need to understand what this rig does, because as you can see, curves are a little bit more complex. They're not as simple as the ones on the robot arm. So the first curve, as you can see, we have translation, rotation, scale, which is pretty cool. The credits to Joe Daniels, of course, and the show belly squash, which in this case it's turned off. That's why we see the 0. We're not going to modify anything here. We're just going to push this line or this element all the way to where we're going to start, which is going to be right about there. Usually when you see a rig, the bigger the curve, the more important it is. So for instance, this yellow curve right here, as you can see, it moves all the hips. These are the hips of the little flower sack. This one right here moves the stomach. And this one right here moves the head, the whole head. So hips, stomach, and head. This little guy right here moves the leg. This one moves the other leg. This one, the little ear. This one, the other ear, of course. And then each individual curve on the ears will create a little bit of a bend right here. Very cool. We also have this extra like squash and stretch elements that allow me to like move this up and down in case we want to, like, imagine like he was avoiding like a cannonball or something. We'll be like woof and then create something interesting there. Same thing over here. We have this bottom line and we can do something very similar, woof, in case he's like jumping on top of something. For this particular exercise, we're not going to be using them, but it's important that we understand what they are. So fairly easy rig. Of course, if we were to examine all the things that make up this rig, it's a very complex thing. It's not difficult per se. Once you know rigging, it's actually relatively relatively simple to create something like this. However, it does take, of course, a little bit of time. Now, what we want to do is, as I mentioned, we want to make this guy jump from this position all the way to this position over here. We're not going to move this curve right here. The main curve, the biggest curve, usually the master control or the placement control as it's called here, should not be animated. A lot of people make the mistake of animating this control right here. Do not, and I repeat, do not animate this control. This is only used to place your character where you want it to start or where the scene is going to start, and then you animate from there. So how then are we going to move this guy? Because if I try to grab the hip and move it, I can't move the rig. If I grab the head and move it, nothing else is moving. We were creating and breaking the rig. Well, most of the rigs should be able to be moved by combining the selection of several curves. So in this case, if we select both yellow curves and move this like this, we are indeed creating some sort of selection, but the little legs there are staying down or are staying back. So if we were to select the two legs and these two curves right here, and we move it, now we can displace and move this thing pretty much everywhere we want. Okay, so those four curves are super important because they're gonna be the curves that we're gonna be using to create everything that we need. Now, I'm gonna create a shelf up here because we're gonna be creating something called selection sets, and I'm running out of space on my main shelf here. So I'm gonna create a new shelf. Let's create here new shelf, and I'm gonna call this nextTut_anim. Hit OK. Now on this new shelf, I want to create something called a quick select set. Instead of having to manually select the four curves that I need here, this, and this, I want to have just one button that allows me to select them in an instant. And it's very easy to create. First, I'm going to select all of them, and I'm going to go into Create, Set, and I'm going to create this quick select set. Right click. There we go. Normal click. Just click that button. That's it. And this one, I'm going to call this flower or FS because it's a flour sack, underscore, and I'm gonna call this T because it's the translation. Okay, and I'm gonna say okay. Now we have this quick selection down here on the outliner with all the 4 curves. And we could, of course, just select them here, which is a little bit faster. But we can also go into select, quick select set, and you're going to see this FS underscore T, which is my translation, flour sack translation. And if I press Control Shift and click, I'm going to add that button into my shelf. Now you can see that we also have a quick select set that has already been made for us, which is the rig all, which will select all the curves, which is important because we want to set a keyframe to all the curves when we're animating. So I'm also going to add that into the shelf right there. So as you can see, both of them have a short name right there, which is important. I'm going to show you a quick little way in which we can create something a little bit more interesting. So right now we have those icons, which are not bad, but let's create something a little bit nicer. What I'm going to do is the following. I am going to hide this cube for just a second. I'm going to press Alt-1 to hide my curves. And I'm going to press Alt-B to change the color of the background. Let's go for this like gray, like this. And I'm going to use my snipping tool inside of Windows to cut this guy right here. Control-C. And we're going to go into Photoshop. I'm going to create one new file. It's going to be very, very small. It's supposed to be 32 by 32 pixels. I'm going to Control-B to paste the image. Now I'm just going to make this smaller, super, super small. Like this. You, of course, need Photoshop or any image editing software. I personally really like Photoshop. There we go. I'm going to delete the background. And then on this guy, I'm going to select all the borders. Like this. And we got this. I'm going to save this as a PNG. And you're going to save it on Documents, Maya, the version of Maya you're working with, Preferences, Icons, and it's going to be here. You can see I have that flour sack icon. So I'm going to create another one here called flour sack icon, and let's call this V2. And now what I'm going to do, if I can right click, edit the button, go into shelves, and here on the icon name, I can change this into, for instance, this is going to be like the normal flower icon, just like a general element. I can erase the label if I don't want to see the name, and then right click, edit, shelves, and we're going to change this to the flower sack icon, this one, which is like jumping. Same thing, let's get rid of the element. So I know that this first one is to select all the curves that are going to move my flour sack, and this one is to select all the curves that are going to select like all the animation. So again, not necessary. It looks very, very cool. When people look at your shelves and they're like, oh, you got those cool icons. What are those? It's just a quick selection, but it looks very nice. Now, leaving that aside, we need to think about how are we going to get this guy from this position all the way to this position. And here's where the animation process comes into place. We're going to be dividing our animation process into several steps. I'm going to use this thing called the grease pencil right here to create a little bit of a drawing. And when we're thinking about animations, we usually have something called key poses, which are the poses that are the most important for our animation, which in this case is this first one where the little sack is just standing there. We're probably going to have a final one where he's standing normally, but all the way over here. We're definitely going to have a squash where this guy is going to be like completely pressed against the ground. We're going to have a stretch where this guy is going to be launching itself all the way to the highest point. We're going to have the highest point, of course, and then we're going to have the landing, the squash after the landing, and then the recovery, where this guy goes back into its normal shape. So all of these things are called key poses. They're the most important poses. Sometimes people call them the extremes because they're the parts that are the most extreme in an animation, and we're going to be animating them first. After that, we're going to jump into something called the in-betweens, which is what happens in between all of these elements, the intermediate poses. Like, what are we going to do when this guy is going like up? Like here, what are we going to do when he's going down? What are we're going to do while he's recovering? Like all of those things are going to be the in-betweens. That's going to be the next video. So let's jump onto the key poses first. I'm going to go into my frame number 1. And right now, I don't want to worry about timing. We're just going to worry about the poses. So in my pose number 1, I'm just going to select all the curves and I'm going to hit S. Okay, that's my first key pose. My second key pose is this guy needs to prepare before the jump. So how am I gonna prepare? Well, I'm probably gonna bring the whole body down like this. Even the pelvis, let's bring it down a little bit. I'm probably gonna like do something like this where he like bends over, preparing all of his body to jump. Now what happens with little ears? Do we want a little bit of animation? Yeah, definitely. So maybe the little ears are gonna go down. So let's move them down. I'm actually gonna grab all of these curves and just rotate them down so that they're like curved like this. Oop, on the y-axis. There we go. And we're gonna select all the animation and hit S. And then on the frame number 3, what's gonna happen is he's gonna recover that rotation and he's gonna start moving up and forward, right? So let's go to the left view. He's probably gonna be looking forward like this. The center of mass right now, I'm gonna keep it like relatively low like this. And now let's bring the little ears back like this. Like this. I do want to keep the ears like this for now, but we have this movement right here. Select all the controllers and hit S. And we have our first set of key poses. So just like idle pose, preparation, stretch, and then I know that he's gonna jump all the way over here. So I can select this guy right here and just move it where I would expect the middle of the jump to be. However, it's gonna be a little bit difficult to create this like the basic standard position that we have back here. A quick way to do this is the following. If I go to this first frame and I select all the curves and with middle mouse drag and place them here, now this frame number 4 is back to this like traditional shape. And what I can do is I can select my movement now and just move this whole thing up. And that way, instead of having to repose everything, I just have the exact same pose for the little guy here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I know that we're gonna have 5, so this guy's gonna land over here. And similar to what we have with the bouncing ball, he's gonna be falling first like this. So there's gonna be a little bit of a stretch, or a stretch, yeah. And then on frame 6, there's gonna be a squash. So this guy's gonna fall here. It's gonna be probably a bigger squash than what we had before because all of the gravity is working, so this guy falls right there. I'm gonna do something similar with the little ears. Let's push them forward. And then again, let's go to perspective. Grab all of these guys and we're gonna curve them down. I'm gonna turn this thing off, which is the geometry mask. That way I cannot select geometry and I'm only gonna be selecting curves, which is what I want. There we go. Select all the curves and hit S. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. It's exactly the same as this one, but all the way in this side, right? So same deal. I'm gonna grab all the curves, middle mouse click 7, grab the movement curves, and just move this guy forward like this. Where exactly? We're as close as possible to where this guy is supposed to be. So as you can see here, let's grab the movement curves right about there. We can even check the exact distance, which is 38.23. So we can say for this guy's, I'm gonna say 38.23. Or actually, nope, I'm just gonna keep it like that. Just move this slightly forward. I'm a little bit concerned that this thing didn't work properly, but that's fine. If this happens to you, just check the rotations and just zero out the rotations on all of those areas. And your character should be going back to normal, like this. There we go. So we select all the curves, hit S, S, S. We want a keyframe in every single curve at every single point here. S, S, and S. And as you can see, we got this little animation. If I were to get this into like 7 frames like this, and I play this, or I just start scrubbing, we're gonna get this like slow motion of the character doing the jump, right? So this is what we're going for. This is the first part of the project, guys. Make sure you load this. Make sure you input the distances correctly so that it looks as close as possible to the one that I have here. If you want to be a little bit more extreme and you want to challenge yourself, you can change or vary the distance or the height of the boxes, and that's gonna make you change the general jump profile. So just keep that in mind. I recommend you stick with the basics first, and then if you want to do an extra exercise, just modify the values a little bit. So yeah, this is it for the first part, guys. I'm gonna stop the video right here, and I'll see you back on the next part. Bye-bye.